Good evening, Tony Dattino here, founder of the USA Memory Championship and doing my Live with Tony in my 5 o'clock hour. And I say 5 o'clock because some days my laptop takes me forever to get it working, so I start usually at 4:30 today. Bing, got it up, running, and I am not a techie, but somehow, by some miracle, I got it up and running first shot this evening. So 4:30, here I am. Wednesday broadcast, and I want to talk about the current issue of Mind, Mood, and Memory. It's a newsletter put out by Massachusetts General Hospital. And I found an article in here, is normal forgetfulness something that's serious, or should we be worried about it, or is it normal? And I found it interesting because the first thing is that, well, is this something new, or is this something that you normally do? And it started with where you misplace things. And I found it humorous because the doctor has says it's important to know how you normally think and behave. Always relate these things to yourself. Is this a change, or is this something new? And he talks about, are you misplacing things? Have you always misplaced things? Or have you always been very organized and you know where you put things, and therefore you can always go back to the source of where you've put them? And I find that most amusing because I find that if people were to use that as a guide to whether or not they're having some cognitive impairment or some early form of worrying about their memory lapses, in today's environment, I think we'd be about 90%. Oh my goodness, we're all losing something, and we're all forgetting something, and therefore we're all displacing things, and we all must be going into mild cognitive impairment. And why do I say that? Because I continue to encounter people more and more in my various social interactions of people that I mostly either Zoom with, or I'm on phone calls with, or I meet at a distance. Since I'm still being very conservative on COVID. But when they find out what I do and I talk to them about the events, the first thing they're always saying, that, my goodness, I forgot where I put my keys, or I forgot where I put my wallet, or I forget where I put my glasses. And that's so common that I'm not sure that the good doctor here in this particular article says, hey, but if you've got a system that you always use and now you don't use that system, that may be something you got to be focused on, especially if you've used the system in the past and you can always find these things. And I say, God, I don't know how many people have a system, but even those that have the system in today's environment, how many people are so preoccupied with 10 other things that are causing them to have a stress level that distracts, that takes them away from what they're focused on and what their thinking is. And I always remember this, and I always like to use this example of a high school student I was coaching to be a USA Memory Champion. And I was taking him through these different drills and teachings and lessons, and boy, he was just knocking it out of the park. Super young student, absorbed in the coaching, absolutely in looking forward to the competition. And so we had weeks of practice, and boy, I got to tell you, he was benchmarking to all the best marks for our names and faces, for our numbers, for our list of words, for the lines of poetry, the order of decks of cards. He was going to win this thing, and I was the coach. And so here we go, the very first event of the day, and I'm all excited. The competition begins, the scoring is coming back, and the head of my scoring comes over to me and says, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, right. You coached him, didn't you? And gives me the name of you coached Joe through this thing, and you thought Joe was going to be our champion. Like, he was your big predictor. Yep, I got it. Well, he just wants you to know he scored 0 on the first event. What? Like, there's no way. Somebody made a mistake. So they took me to the room, they showed me his paper, and he scored 0. Which then says, I got to go find Joe. Okay, Joe. He looks at you, Mr. Dattino, I am so sorry. I just, as soon as they said, let the competition begin, And the beep went off, and I had to recall, and they said, and now put your papers down, now you're going to have to start doing recall. When they announced the recall period and what its time was, my mind just went blank. I just froze. And I couldn't recall the first item I needed to retain. What was my lesson from that? It applies today. It applies today. Any emotional interruption that we have in our, what I call a normal pattern of thinking, any emotional stress or something that causes us to, fight or flight, or even today's the kids, you come home and here's the problem of the day, or did you hear this on the news, or what happened to you at work, or what was traffic like? Any of those pattern interruptions can cause your brain to go freeze and forget where you put your keys down, where did you put your glasses, your glass case, where did you put something you were bringing in? Maybe you didn't even bring it in from the car. Maybe you forgot to even take it out of the seat of the car, and you're looking all over for some papers or groceries or some work that you brought home, and you can't even find it because it never left the car. We live in an environment today where this is so intense, and we are so critically distracted by so many different things that sometimes people are just, let me just go find a cave, and let me just go stay in the cave, and let me live there for a week or two, and maybe I can then bring myself down to a level where I can begin to focus on things that I need to focus on. So the key word here is focus. And so I found it a bit, not amusing in a derogatory way, but here's a doctor doing research at a Massachusetts General, and I love the work they do, and I love this newsletter, but says, gee, if in a normal state, you usually are organized, but now all of a sudden you can't find things, or you're just misplacing them, or you're forgetting. I don't know that we're in a normal state right now, and that's really the challenge, that if you're using that as a gate, I think we can get into trouble in over-diagnosing ourselves with the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm losing my memory. And I can see this at all ages. So this is one of these things that, you know what, it's at all ages, and it doesn't matter how old you are, where you just are so preoccupied with so many different things that are going on in your life, and so many things that are going on in the world around you today, that you can be easily distracted and get bumped off course. And as a result, if you get bumped off course, then your memory is not going to retain and encode it. So I always say to people, you have to remember to remember. And if you don't focus to remember and think about how you're going to input something into your brain, then the chances of you retaining it for recall at a later moment of time is zilch. It's not going to happen. So therefore, if in your moment of trying to remember, well, I have to take this out of the car. Well, gee, there was something I had in the back seat. I should have taken it. There was some things I bought in the store I wanted to use for dinner tonight. But wait a minute. I got a phone call as soon as I came in the door, and I forgot